Hello, hi, welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Amma. I am an all round creative. I write music, I make music, I dance, I cook, I bake, everything. I'm an all round creative. And this is just a safe space for up and coming creatives or already established creatives who want to enhance their creative journey and just add to their creative spaces in whichever way that they would want to do that. So, this is what this space is about. And I just want to quickly get into the class. This is June's class, which is also right now we're currently in Gemini season, and Gemini, as you know, is about the twins, duality, yin and yang, and so those are the concepts that we are going to be exploring during this class and how we can use these concepts to help our creativity, our creative space, and our lives as creatives. So, from the title of the video, you can tell that we are going to be talking about how, as a creative, you have to unrestrict and really remove limitations from your mindset in order for you to actually enhance your creative journey and not really struggle so much in terms of living your life as a creative. Living your life creatively requires unrestricted or unlimited, it requires an unrestricted and unlimited mindset. So, this really speaks to the season we're currently in right now, which is Gemini season, which, as I said in the beginning, this is about duality and more so mental duality, the ability to make space for more than one side or perspective of a conversation or an idea. And I'll give an example of when you watch movies, the writers usually have to single out an idea or a conversation in which the movie is centered upon. Then what they do is that they give you several perspectives within that one idea. So it's almost as if the idea is the entire scope of reality. Then what the movie is showing you the smaller individual realities within that big reality. So within this idea, because this person is of a certain demographic or of a certain age, of a certain gender, this is what their idea of that idea would look like. Whereas this person who is different in every other way, will have a different idea of that idea. And so this is what I'm trying to really express, is that you need to unrestrict and really remove limitations from your mindset, because then you have a broader view of your idea or of your conversation that will actually help you analyze whatever information you're receiving from the external world, and that can help you formulate your own ideas and your own individual opinions. And because you've taken the time to digest the information, digest whatever it is you get, by the time you are ending up with your final conclusion, it will be a conclusion based on the information you've received, but also because of synthesis, how you've synthesized this. You've synthesized it as an individual, how it has settled within your mind and then allowed you to have your opinion. And so you must at all times restrict and resist your instinct to jump into conclusions without properly and adequately gathering evidence and conducting research. So, whereas your experience allowed you to have this sort of perspective, so your experience allowed you to see the conversation or the idea that is being presented to you from a perspective of you being within the northern side of that idea. But if you were to remove if you were to remove your anchoring within the north and put yourself in the east, or put yourself in the south, or put yourself in the west, how would that influence your opinion? How would that new perspective allow you to formulate or synthesize a much more well-rounded opinion, especially as a creative? A lot of times, and I speak to creative blockages a lot. And it's because sometimes your perspective of whatever idea or conversation you're trying to portray to your audience or your listeners or whoever it is that enjoys or consumes your arts, your artistry or your creativity, whoever it is, would have limited their perspective because they are paying a lot of attention to you, then their beliefs are restricted to whatever it is you present forward to them. And so as an artist and as a creative, you have to really get out of that restricted sort of information gathering where you are, you're planted firmly within the north and you've said that I'm going to see this idea just from the north, and I'm not going to take time to look at it from the east, look at it from the west, look at it from the south. So whatever it is you synthesize, then present to your audience, to your listeners, to your readers, will also be very restricted in a way. And so, because you restrict yourself, then you restrict the people who, at the end of it, consume or enjoy whatever it is that you create. And so, we can use this sort of unrestricting of the mind and limiting, removing limitations from the mind as a sort of means in which, as creatives and as artists, we can then enhance our creativity and our creative journey and our lives as creatives as well. So I do have a couple of examples here of how unrestricting and unlimiting your mindset can help you and can help enhance your creative journey and your life as a creative. So the first example is when you're new to a certain craft, when you're new to a certain genre, you know, you do have so much to learn. You're basically a blank slate, a blank page, a blank, yeah? And that might seem very intimidating, yes? It's like this is so much and it's overwhelming and you feel very overwhelmed about all the work that is required of you to gain mastery and to gain an understanding of this new space in which you now currently occupy. But unrestricting my mind from that perspective and moving away from that perspective and getting a new vantage point and being like, yes, I do have much to learn. It is overwhelming me at this current point. However, because this is an unknown to me, I do have so much to explore. And the exploration of this new space, of this new genre, of this new craft is going to help me also explore myself and my identity. So, yes, it is a lot, but there's so much also that you stand to gain. So that is how you unrestrict and remove limitations from your mindset. The second example is yes, I tried to do something and I failed this time. There was a failure, and yes, I have come into acceptance of the fact that I failed. However, unrestricting my mind from that perspective and gaining a different vantage point, whilst still observing that failure, never taking my attention away from the failure, what happens is that I just change how I'm observing the failure. I do not change the failure, I change how I am observing it and how I'm perceiving it. And so then I can say, yes, I did make an attempt. Yes, I did do a trial. Yes, I failed. However, since I am observing my failure from a different vantage point, I have observed what it is that I could have done better and the areas in which I will be improving upon within my next attempts. And so in that way, yes, you failed, but you learned. You learned something new. Excuse me. So yes, you failed, but you learned something new. And yeah, and that's how you then move forward. And I always advocate for creatives to really change their relationship with failure, and so that they never really feel as though failure is something that should really prevent them from furthering their interests within the creative space. So the third example is that yes, my work doesn't quite resemble those that came before me who inspired me to actually even maybe start in my journey. They're the people that inspire us and the people that we take inspiration from. My translation or my additions to this space in which they occupy does not quite resemble the work that they have already produced. And that is the restricted and limited perspective. But if I shift my perspective to observe this idea or this conversation, then I say, yes, it doesn't quite resemble what the greats or those that came before me who inspired me have done. However, my work is something new and something fresh and a translation of whatever information that the space generally gives to artists that occupy it, but just synthesized from an individual point, that it comes out not only as a translation of the space, but as a translation of my identity and my individuality. So I could not then expect my work to come out resembling a different individual. It will come out resembling who I am as a person. The fourth example is yes, my work doesn't currently command a large audience, but it allows me to create work that exists regardless of external validation, approval, or support. And so you have this different perspective where yes, your work doesn't command a lot of attention or does not have the ability to gather a large audience. However, you have unrestricted the means in which your work can exist in. If your work can exist with or without the external validation, then your work is unrestricted and unlimited, and thus you become an unrestricted and an unlimited artist and creative. I hope that you're following. The next example is yes, I will need to be disciplined and consistent when it comes to developing and improving upon my craft. But once we've unrestricted our mindset and we have allowed ourselves to view the idea or the conversation from a different vantage point, but it will feel good once everything comes together and I can really experience the fruits of my labor. Yes, I'll have to put in so much work. I'll have to do this. You have a routine, you do it every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it seems very tedious and it seems like it's a lot of work. Yes. However, at the end of it, when I can then experience my work, when all the accumulation of that karma finally comes together and everything is delivered to me, it will be worth it. So, yes, it's a lot of work, but it's worth it in that end when the fruits of my labor are delivered to me. The next example, yes, correction and critique stings and can be extremely triggering since our creations speak to who we are at our core. Because remember, whatever creations and artistry and art comes out of you is a translation that is filtered through your personality or your persona. But correction or critique that comes as a result of allowing the world to experience our creations only proves that people are truly paying attention to our work. So no one can really give you critique if they're not really paying attention to what you're saying. No one can really give you correction if they're not paying attention to what it is you're doing or what it is you've done. And so, yes, the critique stings. It hurts sometimes when you're told you didn't quite meet the mark or you said something you're not supposed to say or and whatnot. However, it just shows that people are paying attention. So within that idea or conversation about receiving correction and critique. From one angle, I can see it as yes, it hurts, but from another angle, I can see it as yes, they are paying attention. So I have unrestricted my mind, then that has unrestricted my existence as a creative, then and restricts the existence of my creations and my art as well. The next example. Yes, your work will not be able to resonate with a wide audience. So you create your art is of a specific niche, yeah, but it will resonate more deeply within the niche that it is crafted for. So yes, it may bother you or bore you that your art is not does not quite have the capacity to reach a quite a large audience. However, for whatever niche the art was intended for, they will resonate very deeply with your art and with your creations. And so, focus should be removed from the wider audience that the art or the creations is not intended for, and the focus should be then redirected towards the niche that the art is intended for. Next example. Yes, your work is meaningful, but it can also provide a means in which you support yourself, consequently becomes an investment for your future projects. So, not only, but also. That is how you unrestrict and unlimit your mindset and your existence as a creative and the existence of your creations and your art. Not only, but also different streams of thought or different opinions attached to the greater idea and conversation can be true at the same time. So, yes, your work is meaningful, and it can also be the means through which you support yourself through selling your work or whatever it is. If people support you directly just because you make art that inspires them, and there's nothing wrong with that. Not only is the work meaningful, but also it provides a means in which, as an artist, as a creative, I can financially support myself. So, the fact that the art and the creations have the ability to turn over and create finances does not negate from the meaningfulness of the creations and the art. Next example. Yes, I succeeded and got recognized for my work, but my success does not mean that I have reached my destination, that I cannot do better or that I am at my peak. Not only did I succeed, but my success has now become the stepping stone onto which I can then lift myself onto other successes. So just because you succeeded does not mean you cannot succeed again, does not mean that you cannot fail the next time, and restrict so that you're open to whatever it is that comes within your reality. Next example. Yes, I receive inspiration from various people, places, and things. But because of my own unique personality and my individuality, the work I produce will become a translation of my inspirations and not a copy of them. Yes, I can receive inspiration. Excuse me. Yes, I have received inspirations. That's how all creatives and artists work. Excuse me. Through being inspired and through receiving inspirations by from people that did it before us. But I can take whatever it is that inspired me, synthesize it through my own unique thought processes, synthesize it through my personality and my persona, and at the end of it, produce something that is uniquely from me as an individual creative and artist. Yes, that you can find, can sort of identify where my inspirations come from. However, it is uniquely me. So, making space for yourself to be a creative, to not limit your experience as a creative, so that your creative journey becomes an expression of your freedom, not your limitations. So, for a lot of us, we do learn how to be free through our art and our creations, and that's why people resonate so much with the creations and the art from other people, because since the creative and the artist allowed themselves freedom via the process of creation and artistry, they then transfer or allow their audience or their readers or their listeners that same experience of unrestricting and the removal of limitations. And so, as an artist, if you restrict yourself and hence create creations and art that is restricted, whoever is on the other end that is enjoying, consuming your creations and art, then takes on that restriction as well. So, as artists, we need to be very intentional about the very subtle messages we send to our audience, to our listeners, to our readers. That are you meant to be free or are you meant to be restricted? And so, yes, your audience, yes, your listeners, yes, your readers pick up on that. One example I was really thinking about is in the instance of two creatives, one who has a separate full time job, who works in a different field, maybe, who makes their finances through this other job, then channels their finances into their creativity and their artistry, versus an artist that is a full-time artist, is a full-time creative who solely depends on their creativity and their artistry to help them get by, to finance their future projects and all that. So both these artists are valid within their experience. No one is better than the other. Just because you are a full-time creative does not make you any better than the creative that needs to do other things before they can create space for them to be a creative and an artist. None of these experiences is better or worse than the other. They just are what they are. So the first creative with a full-time paying job separate from their creativity and artistry is restricted in that they cannot fully invest their time into their creative pursuits. However, as we observe their experience as creatives who, outside of their creativity, have to invest their time via employment to make their finances and make ends meet. However, they can channel those same finances they get from their employment, from their jobs, to invest in their creative projects and endeavors. And these will be the people within the creative space, within the artist space, who finance a lot of the creations and the art that you see. They are the ones who go get the finances so that they themselves, or they even invest in other artists. And so by them doing that is an expression of their artistry and their creation. Just because they don't hands-on create the art does not negate from the fact that they participate in the revealing or the expression of that art as a whole. Without their investment, a lot of creations and a lot of art would have never seen the light of day. So they have to unrestrict their thinking. Just because you can't invest a lot of your time does not take away from your creativity and your artistry. You will just express it differently, maybe via your finances. And there's no problem with that. It is your experience and it is valid in how it is. But the second creative, who depends on their creative contracts, is restricted in that they may not have the finances to personally fund their projects and creative pursuits. So that is where their restriction is, the fact that a lot of the time they will not have the finances to finance their projects. They won't have the finances to kind of enhance whatever it is they're doing, or get into different spaces within that niche that they occupy. So that is the way in which they're restricted. However, they do have an abundance of time and energy that they can channel into coming up with creative ways to materialize their projects. So, yes, you may not have the finances, but you do have time and energy to think about how you can work around it. Also, because they have a lot of time and energy, they have the space or the means in which to develop multiple projects, so they can do this and do that and do that and that and that and that within the creative space. And so they occupy very many niches because they have the time and the energy to do that, and they are trying to work around their financial restrictions. And so both of these instances are valid in their expression of creativity and artistry. None is better than the other. And this is what I'm trying to communicate with this specific class is, once you unrestrict and remove limitations from your creative journey, you open yourself up to so many new experiences. And you are able then to look at a situation and say, yes, it is this, but it can also be this, and can also be this, and can also be this, and can also be this. And within your exploration of this idea and conversation through different vantage points, you get a wider scope of the idea and that conversation. Then, once you synthesize all that information you gathered through making intentional efforts to occupy different vantage points through which you observe the idea and conversation, you can then communicate these broader ideas to your audience, to your listeners, to your readers, and then transfer your unrestrictedness or unlimitlessness to them through the work that you've created, through your creations and through your artistry. And so that is the lesson for this specific class, for Gemini's class. The twins really allow us to be like, not only, but also. And so, as I said before, you need to learn how to unrestrict your mindset in order for you to enhance your creativity. You need to learn how to stop yourself on your tracks. When you notice yourself rushing to jump into a conclusion without saying, yes, this is the perspective I have, but someone else also has a different perspective. Someone else has a different perspective. Someone else has a different perspective. Let me take in all of that. Let me sit with it. Let me sit with the information for a minute. Let me allow it to digest and synthesize within the being, within the individual, so that once the digestion process is complete and I'm left with an opinion, then I can come and say, yes, because you told me this, this is what I got from that, and all of that. So, learning how to be an unrestricted creative, because creativity, which is something that I tell my creatives all the time, creativity does not do well when you are trying to restrict it. But that is a class for another day, that I'm going to get into how creativity requires self-discipline. I was going to do it today, but I just wanted to do this class for like 30 minutes. So I think I might do it a different time. Creativity does not like to be restricted. That is not a conducive environment for creativity. So if you're struggling as a creative, you really need to observe a lot of your opinions and a lot of your beliefs, and really pay attention and be conscious to how you are perceiving the general collective reality, and not just the reality that you pay attention to. Really be conscious and aware of that, and work towards building a more unrestricted and unlimited mindset. Then go back to your creations and see if it did make a significant change. Okay. So I think that's it for June's class. I hope you really enjoyed. I did not really prepare so much for this class because I made the notes a couple of days ago, and so they're still very fresh in my mind, and I was confident in my ability to express the content, the contents and the context as well. So I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, you know where to find me on my socials and everything. And yes, I hope you enjoyed the class, and I will see you in Cancer season. Bye.